In this video, we're talking about Halloween and who exactly is getting the rights. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and yes, 2 Halloween videos in 1 week, because the last one, the news came out. I wanted to get a video up quickly, which is not something I've really had to do on this channel in a while, so I was glad I wasn't rusty. It's all those PlayStation videos keeping me sharp over on PS Ready. Just a real quick thank you to everyone who watched that video. It was like one of my quickest growing videos ever on this channel, and it was just so awesome to talk with everyone in the comments. So that last video really seemed to open the floodgates on Halloween in terms of just info coming out, because Bloody Disgusting, while they are the most official source to have this info's been floating around for months now. It was just like while the strike was going on and smaller sources having it, everyone was kind of like sitting and waiting for a bigger source like Bloody Disgusting or Big Screen Leaks or some of these other movie leakers that are generally more believable to say something, because no one likes being wrong, right? Like, I hear leaks and rumors all the time, and hardly if ever do I report on them, because it's not worth getting people so excited for something that's never going to happen. But hopefully you understand that the stuff I report on here on the channel is stuff that I can vet with multiple people, and what we heard from Bloody Disgusting is stuff that I have heard for a long time now. So yeah, it's good to know, of course, that Halloween is still alive and thriving. I mean, that's obvious considering the last 3 movies are the highest grossing movies in the entire franchise, and they're some of the most highest grossing horror movies ever. So I don't think it was ever in question whether or not Halloween was going to come back. It was basically when would it come back, because you got to strike while the iron's hot. People are into the idea of Michael Myers, and that couldn't be more clear after the last 3 movies. And on top of that, we also have the Halloween H45 convention in Pasadena this weekend. Man, I'm so bummed I'm gonna miss this. I'm absolutely cursed by these conventions. I missed the H40 convention because I got tickets to a very early screening of Halloween 2018 in Salem, Massachusetts. So I literally jumped on a plane the day I got those tickets and flew there. That was the same weekend as that convention. And this time, I gotta get ready for my wedding. My wedding is October 13th. So yeah, I'm glad that they moved up The Exorcist Believer so I can check that out. But we have so much little last minute things going on that I just can't swing a trip to California right now, which is crazy because I lived there for 8 years, but now I'm in Michigan and just things are different. As far as what's going to be announced at this convention, I have seen some posts in Facebook groups and things like that about maybe some announcement happening at the panel on Sunday. That's usually like where things are announced, the big panel right at the end. And if anything is going to be announced, I would put my money on a Halloween 3 TV series. So I've talked about this multiple times on the channel, but Malik Akkad, way back when Halloween 2018 was newly releasing, and he was talking about, well, we might be doing a sequel with Halloween Kills, and then eventually we got Halloween Kills and Ends announced at the same time, and then the whole disaster with the happened, and like we had to wait for all those delays. In between all of that happening, he was talking about a TV series. He was saying stuff like, we really think there's something that can be done there. There's a lot of characters we can play with, but the thing that they always seemed adamant about was making that TV series, whatever it ends up being, exist in the Halloween 3 universe. Now, I don't know how deep something like that would go. I think my favorite option for something like that would be them just taking on the anthology banner. My friend Mike over at We Watched a Movie had the same mentality that I did, where it's like, having an anthology called Halloween is cool in theory, but there are already so many Halloween anthologies, right? Like, we have Trick or Treat, which in my opinion is the perfect Halloween anthology. There's Tales from Halloween. The original thing that Art the Clown showed up in, I forget what it's called, that was a horror anthology. There was one on Shudder last year, I forget what it's called, but it was pretty decent. There's a lot of horror anthologies that are set around Halloween, which was the point. So with Trick or Treat 2 coming out and them kind of switching from Mike Dougherty directing the entire thing to having it be an anthology where each director takes on an individual short in the movie and then Mike Dougherty kind of connects them all together. I mean, how did I forget about VHS and all of those movies? Those all take place on Halloween as well. It doesn't really make sense for a name as big as Halloween, even though it is called Halloween, which is kind of funny, to be a Halloween anthology movie. But if you're talking about a TV show, that's a completely different story, right? Like, having Michael Myers in it could be cool. I mean, we talked about this, like having it be like Rob Zombie's Halloween, where they focus on a child Michael going through Smith's Grove and then like deconstruct what made him into a murderer. murderer. I think that could be cool if they picked someone more menacing than Dag Furch looked as a kid. Like, he was a really cute little kid. So yes, I understand that it was Rob Zombie going for this tragic downfall of someone you would never expect to be a serial killer, but it didn't really work for a multitude of reasons, and that was one of the biggest reasons. So yeah, I guess there is a real opportunity there to dig into Michael's backstory and really make Smith's Grove this terrifying place, and also you could dig into all the different killers and murderers and all these different monsters that might be lurking there, sort of like an Arkham Asylum series or something like that. That could be kind of cool, but for me personally, anything that shies away from Michael Myers being the main villain, wearing the mask, wearing the coveralls, stalking a town on Halloween night, that's not really what I'm personally interested in unless we're talking about Halloween 3. I've always loved Halloween 3. I've talked about it ever since I started this channel. I saw it for the first time super young because of my favorite thing in the entire world, AMC Fear Fest. They did Halloween marathons all the time when I was a kid, and when I was like 9 or 10, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger, I don't even remember at this point, I saw a marathon that was like Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and then they jumped straight to Halloween 3. And I was like, oh man, I didn't even know that this existed. I'm so excited to see what's going on with Michael Myers. And then I watched it. He wasn't showing up. There was these weird robots. It did scare the crap out of me when the robot like pours all the gas on himself and blows up the car. That just like terrified me. And it still gives me a little bit of like a heart skip when I watch it now. But then I realized I was like 80% into the movie because I had TV Guide. So I flipped back to the TV Guide channel and I was like, damn, this is Halloween 3. Where is Michael Myers? He doesn't exist in this movie. And unlike most people, I think it's probably because I was a kid, I was like, oh, maybe they just made one without Michael Myers. That's okay. I didn't really care, you know? I was excited to see that. And then I was like, wait, why is Halloween 4 with Michael Myers? This is so confusing, but I love all those movies, long story short. But when you talk about the idea of revisiting the Halloween 3 universe, there's only so much you can really do there, I think, especially if you want it to exist within the world of the actual movie. Like, you could do a prequel for sure, where Conal Cochran is building up Silver Shamrock and the whole Santa Mira like company town community way out in the middle of nowhere. You could talk about how he discovers how this like Easter Island head has this Samhain power that's going to melt people's heads and turn them into skeletons and snakes and bugs and things like that. And that's pretty cool. But like all of that, I think kind of covers one episode. And then it's like, what do you do between that time and Halloween 3? Also, you could definitely do a sequel, but it'd be kind of weird because Cochran's dead. And also it would kind of ruin the cliffhanger ending of Halloween 3, where Tom Atkins' character, Dr. Chalice, is like calling the TV station saying like, turn it off. And you don't know if he's able to turn it off, so that'd be kind of a bummer. So if they are going to revisit the actual movie, I feel like it has to just be a remake but split up over like 6 episodes, because that would kind of work, right? Like, you have the whole investigation idea where these characters are like, whoa, there's like a robot and they're coming to town. Like, why are there robots? Why are they killing people who are investigating Silver Shamrock? And that kind of like expands into its own little mystery investigation, and they could focus more on the kills and things like that. I still don't know if that's enough for an entire TV series though, and at the very most, I think that's a mini series. Like, I don't think that could be a multiple season ordeal, but hey, I'm not the one writing these shows. Thankfully, the strike seems to be ending, so writers are going to get back to work. But yeah, I don't know. There's like not that much I think you could do with the Halloween 3 movie universe. This video is sponsored by Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen meals directly to your door. Oh, and it's important to say that they're dietitian approved too. With Factor, you can adjust your stride this autumn without missing a step. They've got over 34 fresh, never frozen meals to choose from, and they'll be ready to eat in 2 minutes. And they're perfect if you're too busy running around during the day to even think about lunch. And they're perfect if you're looking for calorie conscious options during this busy season. That's because they've got calorie smart meals with around less than 550 calories per serving. I've actually tried Factor before, and the reason I thought of it is because I moved into this house in June and I still don't have a kitchen, so anything that's not terrible that I can just throw in the microwave is good. So it's an added bonus that Factor not only tastes great, but actually fills you up. So when you're ready to try Factor, head to factor75.com or click the link down in the description and use the code champagne50 at checkout for 50% off your first Factor box. Huge shout out to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. So keeping all that in mind, if this TV show happens, I feel like the best way they can do it is to just make it a Halloween anthology that comes out every October. There was a lot of Halloween sort of TV shows with horror elements that they would have to compete with over the past few years or so, but all of those have sort of fallen by the wayside, because even my favorite Halloween tradition, which is to watch Mike Flanagan's new Halloween series that always drops on Netflix, that's going to be ending this year because he signed an exclusive deal with Prime. So I don't know if it's going to be the same or if he's going to be making movies or what, but that annual Netflix show that I honestly really liked, except for The Midnight Club, I did not like that show at all, but the other ones are all really good. So other than Chucky, Halloween is kind of left wide open for a Halloween anthology series, because I don't know, I know we kind of get that with the American Horror Story stuff and like the American Horror Story anthology show they did, but like I don't really like that show because they take these awesome themes and settings and just throw them on the back burner for like weird melodrama and just garbage. I don't know, I just don't like American Horror Story. So like having a good Halloween anthology with the official Halloween banner where you could bring in new directors and have them work on new stuff and make it like an actual show where every year you get a new story, that could be kind of awesome. If they could channel the idea of Channel Zero, which never really found its footing, but make it more of an actual like scary 80s slasher style thing, I think that could land pretty well and a lot of horror fans would show up to watch it. The only reason I keep coming back to this TV show is because I'm just so curious about it, because I just don't really understand why Malek Akkad is so focused on TV. Like we're seeing streamers fall apart, cable TV is having issues, like TV doesn't seem to be this hot place to go like it was in 2018 or even earlier, because everything is just kind of like having diminishing returns and they're not getting enough subscribers, and you know they're spending so much money on these shows production that they're not really making anything back on it, and everything once again is just sort of falling apart. And also when you have a movie franchise like Halloween that literally peaked in the last 3 entries, like downgrading it to TV doesn't really seem like the smartest move in my opinion. It seems like a basic like safe move, when right now is the best time to take a risk with Halloween because you're coming off of a box office high. It's not the highest it's been. Halloween 2018 was definitely that, but it is high, right? Like you want to ride that momentum as long as you can. Of course, the critic and fan consensus on Halloween Ends sort of hurts that, but I don't think it's bad enough where you have to just abandon the idea of movies for a while and work on a TV show. Like at that point, just wait a little bit longer and come back with a new rebooted movie. But yeah, speaking of movies, let's talk about who the frontrunner is to get these Halloween rights. So I'm kind of like confused on this because the way it's written in the Bloody Disgusting article makes it seem like Miramax is going to retain the rights to Halloween, but they're going to like sort of rent them out for an X-Picture movie deal like they did with Universal and Blumhouse, where Miramax was always involved in the background, where Universal and Blumhouse were the distributor and the production company on the actual movie, and Miramax was probably fronting a lot of the production cost. At first it seemed like that's what was happening, and honestly I'm still like 80% sure that is what's happening, but I've seen a lot of other people making it seem like Miramax is just selling the rights wholesale to whoever picks them up, which would obviously make them extremely expensive. Universal and Blumhouse, for example, I think spent like $440 million, like $500 million on the Exorcist rights. So with Halloween actually having a cachet right now of profitable movies, you could expect it to be the same, if not more, if they're renting out the rights or even selling them. But with all that being said, the frontrunner that I've heard the most about at this point is Paramount. And honestly, like I didn't really focus on them in my last video as much because I read this right before I started recording and I wanted to talk about it in a future video. I think Paramount is a really good choice for Halloween to end up at, right? Like we talked about Warner Brothers, how they have their own horror franchises like The Conjuring. They also did Malignant. They distributed Evil Dead Rise, but they didn't produce it. I'm assuming whatever sequel happens, they will distribute as well and maybe even produce it. So they've got their own stuff going on, including the Welcome to Derry TV show, which thankfully is still in production. Universal has the Exorcist trilogy, which like the closer we get to it, the worse the investment seems to me there. Like I don't really know why they thought they'd be able to resurrect the fandom for the Exorcist, just because I don't think the Exorcist fandom was ever really there. Like there are people who say the Exorcist is the scariest movie of all time, and a lot of people, myself included, like watching it around Halloween. But like when I'm making my top 10 favorite horror franchises, I'm never gonna list the Exorcist because everything except for the first movie, Exorcist 3, and the Fox TV show is kind of mid or worse in my opinion. But yeah, like I just said, they spent a ton of money on those Exorcist rights, so I don't really think there's even an option for them to go back to Halloween, and all that really leaves is A24 and Paramount. I don't want A24 to make Halloween. I've talked about this before multiple times, but like that's just not the kind of movie they make. Like I think the closest they've gotten to that is is Talk to Me, and they didn't make that movie. They bought it from Sundance, and even that isn't really what I would consider a slasher movie. Like, it's extremely character focused, and what I want out of a big tentpole theatrical franchise movie is Michael Myers to be the focus, the kills to be the focus. All the money should go into the set design, Michael Myers costume, and practical kill FX. Everything else can be secondary, and of course the soundtrack. That's got to be a top tier focus. So when I think about A24, their budgets just aren't big enough, their marketing spend isn't big enough, and it's like their movies don't reach out far enough to really demand that they be the ones to get Halloween. Could they get to that point? Yes, I think so. Do they want to get to that point? I don't think so. I think they love being in this like middle ground plus where they make a lot of money back on cheap movies. That's like their bread and butter, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. So yeah, that really only leaves Paramount, and if I'm being honest, I feel like that's a great place for it to end up. Paramount's Blumhouse, like Blumhouse works with Universal mainly. Paramount has their own Blumhouse, which is Spyglass. They're the people who kind of got everything going with Scream 5. And as much as like I don't love Scream 5, I think it's just kind of like paint by numbers, and I don't really think Do We Deserve to Die. I also don't think Gale and Sid really had much to do in that movie. I liked it. I thought it was a really good revival, and it hit with major fans of Scream. Scream 6 is the one, if you compare the two, where I was like, okay, I love this movie. I love Radio Silence. I love Ghostface with the shotgun. I love how fucking mean-spirited he is when he's shaking the ladder and the girl falls off and like smacks her out on the dumpster. There are so many great kill moments in that movie. Like, it's a brutal New York City set movie. I think they did everything they wanted to do, even with being hamstrung by Sid not being in the movie, even though she was initially planned to be in it. So if Paramount and Spyglass are able to get Halloween, I feel like they could do a really good job. Like, Paramount knew to go get Radio Silence after Ready or Not. They're great directors. They're the guys who worked on the first VHS. They have some of the best VHS shorts ever made. Like, everything they touch turns to gold. So I think Paramount knew, and Spyglass knew, that that was a good directing duo to go get. I have no reason to believe they wouldn't have the same effect with Halloween. And if they were able to pick up Halloween, a lot of you would be happy. I know a lot of people really want Corey to come back and be the new Michael Myers, like have them really commit to that idea. That's never going to happen. I think whatever we get, it'll be Michael Myers as we know him, but it'll either be once again a direct sequel to one of the Halloween movies like Halloween 2 or Halloween 4, or it'll just be a full-on reboot or remake set in the 1970s or early 80s, which honestly, again, that is what I really want. I want a movie that's a period piece. I want it back in the 80s, what everyone's nostalgic for now, or you could even set it in the 90s. Like, a lot of people are nostalgic for the 90s now, have all that backstory lore, like Michael Myers was blown up at the end of Halloween 2, and there's always these rumors around Haddonfield, or he might be an American legend now where he could show up at any suburban town and come terrorize people on Halloween night, and then suddenly he does. There's a ton of stuff you could do there while retaining the lore. Also, I'd just like be interested in seeing something new, right? Like, as long as you have the mask, you can kind of do anything with Michael Myers as a character, and just because of his rules where he is basically unkillable, he can kind of teleport around but not totally, and his mask is absolutely terrifying. You can put him in a lot of different scenarios and have him still be effective and scary. So I think Paramount would definitely be able to do that, and if anyone's going to get the rights, I feel like that's honestly the best option we have right now. Knowing that Universal is probably off the table, knowing that Warner Brothers is busy doing their own thing, and A24 is kind of like my least favorite option, I don't have a better defense than that. Paramount just seems like the easiest option to go with, and they have proven pedigree. They've been putting out a ton of horror lately that's been doing well, between Orphan First Kill, Smile, the 2 Scream movies. Like, they have a lot of stuff going on with horror, and they know how to not only make the movies but also market them extremely well. So they could be another production company and or distributor that makes a ton of money with great marketing on the Halloween franchise. But whatever happens, I think we'll see this movie by 2025. I think it's going to be fast-tracked because having a big tentpole franchise Halloween movie that you can put out towards the end of the year for a $10 to $12 to $20 million budget and see a $100 million return, no studio is going to turn that down right now after the strikes and also all the streaming stuff falling apart around them. So yeah, that's all the updates related to Halloween. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.